Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro offered an international press conference this Wednesday and announced the start of the country's vaccination campaign and the strategy to confront the pandemic. Police in Spain report that 14 people were arrested in protests in several cities on Tuesday following the imprisonment of paper rapper Pablo Hasél. The Central Bank of Bolivia has returned a loan of over 300 million illegally agreed by the facto regime to the International Monetary Fund. Hello, welcome to From the South. I am Janet Perez Moya from the teleSUR studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. The Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro offered an international press conference to provide an update on the current situation in regards to the COVID-19 pandemic and the strategies to face it. President Maduro announced that Venezuela will launch its vaccination campaign against COVID-19 this Thursday using the Russian Sputnik V vaccine. In this first stage, health personnel and priority sectors will receive the vaccine, including civil servants, security force, and lawmakers. Maduro also highlighted the delays in vaccine production and the hoarding of doses by several nations. Taking into account the context, President Maduro informed that his government plans to begin large-scale vaccinations across the country in April.
Meanwhile, we approved the Sputnik V vaccine. Tomorrow, on Thursday 18, we're going to start vaccinating all health workers of the country. That's what we continue to say. If you want a vaccine, here you have it. It's important to prevent. It's fundamental in this stage of fight, of struggle against coronavirus.
President Maduro urged opposition leaders to join the Direwolf and peace process installed by the National Assembly in order to ensure an inclusive elections for state governors and mayors.
I encourage them for us to reach a great national agreement in the peace dialogue in the National Assembly for a governor election that is inclusive. That's what I call for in this press conference, to work to have the best guarantees, electoral guarantees, for an electoral process that is where with the people's vote, governors and mayors are elected.
President Maduro rejected the statement made by the Colombian counterparty Iván Duque on the alleged presence of the ELN guerrilla in Venezuela and reiterated that he will defend the country from any aggression promoted by Bogotá.
I have said to the armed forces of our country to answer strongly the reckless statements of Iván Duque of Venezuela, to answer them in words and to clean and ready our army to answer if Iván Duque dares to violate the sovereignty of Venezuela, if Iván Duque dares to touch 1 millimeter of Venezuela's territory. Take care, Iván Duque, respect Venezuela, know your limits.
In a statement to U.S. media outlet, Ecuadorian presidential candidate Andres Araus criticized the agreement made between his country and the International Monetary Fund by Lenin Moreno government, stressing that it affects the quality of life of the population.
Because we cannot accept an agreement that affects the Ecuadorian family, we cannot accept a cut in public spending, we cannot accept that dollars continue to be drained out of the Ecuadorian economy. We have to strengthen the Ecuadorian economy according to our constitution to generate credit, entrepreneurship, development opportunities for our country.
Araus went on to state that the possible trade agreement between Ecuador and the United States is in a preliminary stage.
The supposed agreements are in a very preliminary stage. Today, there are no negotiations on the way. The only action taken was an agreement to initiate a future deal, but not even the scope of that deal has been defined, and we are paying great attention to what is going to happen.
A winter storm that has been affecting the United States for the past 3 days has left at least 21 dead and millions of homes without electrical power. The storm, with sub-zero temperatures, also caused several tornadoes in the state of Minnesota, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Texas, where from the first time ever a tornado alert was issued. In addition, the low temperatures and accidents caused by the freezing storm result in the deaths of 21 people in various parts of the affected regions. Texas is the state most affected by the storm, where over 2 million homes and businesses remain without electrical power. Meanwhile, Texas residents and authorities criticize the state's electricity system. Governor Greg Abbott called to investigate the Electric Reliability Council, which controls 90% of Texas electrical utilities. On the other hand, due to the suspension of the natural gas supply that feeds power plant in northern Mexico, over 4 million homes were left without electricity. A massive snowstorm hit the city on Wednesday, causing road closures and the cancellations of student exams. Heavy snowfall blanket towns and villages across the north of the country. In the capital, Damascus, and other provinces, university students were told their examinations were being postponed due to the severe weather. Other neighboring countries, including Lebanon, Egypt, and Libya, have also been affected by the cold front. Turkey's largest city also saw severe weather as a blizzard continued for a fourth day, bringing traffic to halt in some areas. Istanbul Disaster Coordination Center said on Wednesday that up to 50 centimeters of snow had accumulated in the higher altitude districts of the city. Local media report roads and school closures in other parts of the country were also affected by the winter heavy. Heavy snow began falling in the Israeli-occupied city of Jerusalem on Wednesday as a winter storm battered Israel. Experts say that snow could reach about 4 inches, especially in the most uphill neighborhood. Some schools were closed due to the accumulation of ice on the roads. Authorities closed all its churches to boarders due to the stormy weather and fear of seaway backing up into the sea. The Israeli Electric Corporation said field teams has been reinforced to respond to any outage of service interruptions. The last storm of this type in Israel took place in December 2013, where Jerusalem received as much as 7 inches of snow. We will take a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Police in Spain report that 14 people were arrested in street protests in several cities on Tuesday, following the arrest of Spanish rap artist Pablo Hasél. Emergency service say 30 people were treated from injuries in the disturbance, which saw clashes between protesters and police. In the northeastern city of Barcelona, thousands took to the street. Smaller demonstrations took place in other Spanish cities. A 24-hour standoff between police and Hasél ended early Tuesday when anti-riot officer raided Lleida University to arrest him. He was taken to prison to serve a 9-month sentence for allegedly insulting the monarchy and glorifying terrorism in a song about former King Juan Carlos I and in 64 tweets. Italy's new Prime Minister Mario Draghi calls for the country to rebuild within a more closely integrated European Union.
Supporting this government means sharing the irreversibility of the euro choice, means sharing the prospect of an even more integrated European Union, which will approve a common public budget capable of supporting countries in times of recession.
Demonstrators in Myanmar gathered in their largest number so far this Wednesday to protest the military takeover of power. UN human rights experts Tom Andrews warned that troops being brought to Yangon and elsewhere could signal the prospect for major violence. Fresh protests were seen in Yangon, the second largest city of Mandalay and the capital Matipio, in a defense of order, banning gatherings of 5 or more people. Protesters have adopted a tactic of blocking off a street from security forces by parking vehicles in groups with their hoods and the excuse of having engine troubles. The marches have been organized as part of a civil disobedience movement spearheaded by medical workers and supported by many civil servants. Nigerian government officials announced Wednesday that the gunman, believed to the members of a criminal gang, had stormed a school, killing 1 student and kidnapping dozens of others, as well as teachers and relatives. President Muhammadu Buhari ordered security force to coordinate a rescue operation. 42 people were seized when gunmen dressed in military uniforms raided the Science College in the town of Kagara in Niger State before hauling kidnapped victims into a nearby forest. Spokesman for the state government, Muhammad Say Idris, said the kidnappers took 27 students along with 3 teachers and 12 family members. Heavily armed gangs known locally as bandits in northwest and central Nigeria have stepped up attacks in recent years, kidnapping from ransom, raping and pillaging. Only 2 months ago, more than 300 students were kidnapped from school in Kankara in nearby Katsina State. The death toll following a deadly boat accident in the Democratic Republic of Congo reached 76 as of on Wednesday morning, after more bodies were recovered by rescuers. Congolese Minister of Humanitarian Affairs Steve Mikayi said the boat sank on the Congo River overnight on Sunday in the province of Maindombe, with more than 700 people aboard. About 300 were rescued. Rescuers initially found 60 bodies, but another 16 were retrieved on Tuesday night. More than 300 people remain missing. The minister added that the accident was likely caused by the boat being overloaded with passengers and goods, as well as night navigation issues. The end of apartheid in South Africa was achieved with the help of neighboring countries. Mozambique, Zambia and Angola are some of the countries credited by offering refuge for South African freedom fighters. But a year later, many citizens of these countries flocked to South Africa to escape poverty.
South Africa has strong historical ties with Mozambique. This became apparent in 1981 when the apartheid government sent forces to kill African National Congress military wing operatives in Matola outside the Mozambican border capital Maputo. Then President Samora Machel expressed continued support for South African freedom fighters against apartheid. The South African white supremacist government also sponsored the war against Samora Machel's Frelimo party, which sought to establish a socialist state. It's a war that ended in the early 1990s, but left many like Thomas Ngoma broken physically and emotionally.
He says he came to South Africa to escape poverty. His injury from the civil war made it impossible for him to work, he says. But he was hoping to find a job in farms here in South Africa to sustain his family.
Thomas was the casualty of the civil war between Mozambique's Frelimo and Renamo. Today he's a refugee in South Africa in the Mpumalanga province. He's undocumented, and that makes it difficult for him to receive a prosthetic leg through the public health system. He lost his leg during the brutal civil war in his home country.
185. Thomas says the incident happened in 1985, but he last got physiotherapy and the replacement leg in the 1990s.
South Africa's health system was already overwhelmed before the pandemic, and undocumented people like Thomas can't even join the already long queue of people seeking crucial medical attention. South Africa recently confirmed that it would help Mozambique deal with the insurgency in the northern parts of that country. But places like this, the Samora Machel Memorial, give hope to people like Thomas that South Africa will help Mozambique deal with the generational crisis of poor Mozambicans who end up here in South Africa as undocumented migrants. Ironically, Samora Machel's life ended near the borderline village of Mbuzini, which many Mozambicans today use to cross into South Africa to escape strife in their country. However, many of them face an uncertain future, like Thomas, when they arrive. I'm Matuba Mahlachi, near the Mozambican border in South Africa, Mpumalanga province.
We will take another short break. We will be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. The president of the Central Bank of Bolivia, Edwin Rojas, announced details of the return of the International Monetary Fund loan negotiated by de facto government of Yanine Áñez.
What is determined is that the Central Bank of Bolivia has established to carry out all administrative and legal actions in order to repay the credit and avoid further economic damage to the country by proceeding with the return of the resources. In this sense, and according to Law 1670, which establishes that the Central Bank of Bolivia is a financial agent of the government, to date, $351.5 million have been repaid.
The official also informed that the central bank will take legal actions against those involved in the process of negotiation the loan with the International Monetary Fund.